close. We're actually going to Atlanta.
Ah, I work for Purdue Federal Credit Union, commercial lending. Ours is about 20, 25 million. We're about 2.8, $2.2 billion. No, just Tippecanoe County. Oh, and Crown, I guess in Crown and Lake County. So we're just, I mean, we just lend. The way our rules are right now, we can just lend and take collateral, and we can loan to people. I mean, so if you're from out of state and you want to invest here, we can do that. Legal difference. Well, legal difference probably would be in some legal verbiage of, I mean, essentially there is, I mean, we're a member only, so you have to qualify for membership, which for, you know, oh, okay. So, I mean, so you have to be, basically, if you have some connection to Purdue, that's the easiest way for most people around here to, but set you up with an alumni membership. That's the that's the that's the that's the last one. If there isn't any other group that you can belong to, we can get you. How are you, Kim? So yeah, so essentially that's the membership thing, and then instead of FDIC, we have National Tuna. It's not FDIC, but it's the same thing. But no, it's back. I don't believe so. I'm assuming that we pay. I just came to the credit union 2 years ago. I was in commercial banking my entire career. I was with a local bank here, Lafayette Savings Bank, and then they were purchased by Old National. Okay, but that was some great training. Yeah, yeah, it was great training. Sally. So yeah, so I'm still I don't know all. I'm still pretty new to all the rules and things of the credit union. But you know, in today's world, I mean, we can do. I mean, money's money, and we can do. You as the consumer.
to get, Express. Yeah, we'll have maybe have Taco Express this year.
You might be able to. Go see. I don't know if they do.
Like corn tacos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe, honey.
Okay.
What do you need? Uh-huh.
If he.
Put it in your room right now.
Okay, hold on. I put Patch and Penny in there.
Oh, good.
Patch and Penny. I will be on mute, so if he wants to come in, he's welcome to.
Okay, good.
If you need a break.
Yeah.
All right.
Progress.
Testing. Leonard is online. Um, we got his better half tonight in person. All right. There's Leonard and Chris, Kevin, Ben's iPhone, Ian McMillan. There you go. All right, and that's this guy in my next life, number 11 in red. You see? No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully, ain't no football in my next life. You did. He had a good game that day too. Need to come more often. All right, we're gonna. You all comfortable? It's not too hot, warm in here. You go. Yeah, everybody's good. All right. So We will start the same way we did last week. Hey, Randy. That's Kevin Lecture, board member Kevin Lecture. Yes. So yeah, we are starting a word of prayer, and then we will go around and introduce ourselves, and then I'll turn the meeting over to our Zion consultant rep here in person. You look better today, Leonard. And then I turn it over to Todd, and we will roll on. Amen. Amen. Let's pause for a moment and breathe and go into a word of prayer. Just breathe, breathe, and breathe some more. Gracious and merciful, loving and faithful, eternal God, we pause for a moment to say thank you for your presence and for the presence of each one sitting in this space and who are connected to us virtually. We thank you for technology. God, now we know and understand that you are omnipresent, so it's not that we invite you in this space. We need your presence to be made known in this space. As we seek the partner that you will have for us to build this, your ministry, in this community so that we can continue to pour ourselves into this community of young adults who are our future. We understand, God, that we need you to reveal to us who that perfect partner would be. Speak, God, for here we are, your servants listening. Speak, for here we are, your servants listening. Speak, God, and let your spirit rain fresh on us. Amen. Amen. And amen. So I'm Rodney Lynch. I serve as pastor and executive director of the Baptist Student Foundation here at Purdue. Been here about 6 years from New Jersey by way of Alabama. Roll Tide, baby. All we do is win championships. But anyway, you don't want me to say St. Peter's now. Anyway, that's me. Todd?
Hello. Hello, my name is Todd Wiley. I'm with Zion Consulting. We represent the Baptist Student Foundation in trying to help them find a development partner. Met Rodney about 3 or 4 years ago at this point, and been searching ever since to find someone who was interested in doing this particular project. So I'm happy to see that we have 2 viable candidates. The second one is here tonight, and hopefully sometime shortly thereafter we'll be able to make a decision on who our right partner is.
Everybody on Zoom, you can hear us clearly, correct?
Kevin Jennings
Yes.
with Purdue Federal Credit Union, community member here.
Randy Price. I attend the First Baptist Church in Monticello, and I'm a former board member and a retired executive.
Ronnie Macheski, Bill and myself are development partners. Bill Fideli. I run WFI. We're a real estate investment firm with a deep specialty in student housing.
They can't hear you.
Gordon Coppock, Secretary, Baptist Student Foundation, First Baptist Church, Lafayette.
Sally Byrne, I'm a member of the community.
Charlie Shook, I'm a local realtor, member of the community, friend of Rodney's through the West Lafayette Human Relations Commission.
I'm gonna call you all on as I see you on the screen. Chris?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Chris Siegel. I'm from Indianapolis, go to First Baptist Church, Indy, and am blessed to be on the BSF board since this past January.
Kevin?
Kevin Letcher, a member of the Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in Lafayette, been a member of the board for approximately 6 months.
Quan?
I graduated like 2 years ago, so I went to the Found the last 3 years of my PhD program.
And he's in Portland now working. Ian?
Yes, Ian McMillan, pastor at First Baptist Church, Monticello, where Randy is one of our deacons and leaders. So.
Ben, you able to talk?
Yeah. Name's Ben Thomas. I'm the president of the board of the Baptist Student Foundation. Been involved with the organization for about 10 years. I had surgery on Friday, so that's why I'm not there in person. I wish I could be, but this is the next best option.
Thank you. Heal up, my brother. Josh?
Yes, good evening. My name is Josh Holman. I work at the Tippecanoe County Public Library.
Thank you, Josh, and member of the building committee as well. Last but not least, Leonard.
Hi, good evening. It's Leonard Murray. I am a partner at Zion Consulting, which is a real estate consultant for the Found.
Thank you. So I'm gonna allow Ronnie and Bill to say a little bit more about who they are and their company and what they're going to bring to the table. And then as they share, you don't have to share about the whole proposal, just a little bit more about you and the company that you represent. And then Todd, you can run the show. Cool? Thank you.
Well, it's
Bill
nice
and
to be
Ronnie.
here. It's good to be here again. Last time we were here was very conversational. Hopefully it's the same way this time around. To the extent anybody has any questions, please just interject and ask away. We try to be as transparent as possible. As I mentioned, we're a real estate investment firm. Our real specialty is in student housing. My background originally was commercial banking as a credit analyst at Bank of America straight out of undergrad. And then I wanted to be more transactional and I wanted to learn valuations. And so I migrated into investment banking and did that for a number of years. And throughout my finance career, I did a little bit of everything. You name an exotic transaction and somehow, somewhere I was exposed to it. And we were expecting our first child. And my wife says, well, I'm moving back home. You're going to join me. And so I left DC, went to Boston, and have been there for 22 consecutive years now. And in the process, I switched from investment banking into buy side of real estate. And I just fell in love with it. I like real estate for all the reasons why everybody in the room likes real estate, because it's you can reach out and touch it. You can see it. If you build something, you can drive by it and say, I built that. If you look at the front page of our presentation, Ronnie and I are going to this tomorrow in Georgia because this is opening in August of this year and we need to make sure that it's on time. And so it's going to be there 100 years from today. You know, my children's grandchildren can go and look at that and say, oh, my great-grandfather was involved in that. But at the end of the day, at my heart, I'm a capitalist. I'm a finance guy. And I like real estate because I see ones and zeros. And I really like student housing because it's very much operational real estate. And it's a business within a fixed asset. And I love going to University Market. I like watching football on Saturday versus Sunday. University markets tend to have really neat, funky retail that you can't find elsewhere in the country. Like today, we were trying to go to a Mediterranean grill. That's hard to find in Boston. Boston has French restaurants, it has steak houses, it has fish, and it does it incredibly well. It's extremely deep. You go to New York City, you name it, it's really broad and it's really deep, right? But you go to a university town, and there's that one crazy place that 20 years from today, you're still going to remember. And I've always found that neat. And what I also like about university markets is you're dealing with a young demographic. And in student housing, it is imperative to understand the desires and the whims and the needs of that customer base, because it changes year over year. And we have been really good at identifying that. And we have been really good at structuring business plans to meet those needs and desires and whims. And it's really hard for somebody. I'm turning 49 in June. Really hard for a 49-year-old to tell you what a 20-year-old wants. And so, and Ronnie, what are you, 48? And so it's very challenging for us. And so that's where experience comes in. That's where we go and surround ourselves with industry experts. And that's how we've been successful throughout our careers. You'll hear about Ronnie's background in a second, but when I say we're student housing experts, we have been involved in over $3 billion of student housing investments, well over 60 developments coast to coast. This project we're doing right now is a $52 million job in Athens, Georgia, right next to the University of Georgia. We just built in Auburn, Alabama. Your hometown, right? Isn't that school? Right. And so, but that's just student housing. We have deep experience in industrial. We have deep experience in office. We have some experience in retail, and but our passion right now is in student. Absolutely love it. Want to give a little bit?
Sure. So I started in student housing industry about 30 years ago by complete accident. Graduated from college, didn't have a job, went to work for a family business that was a construction company in Houston, wound up working for a development company, and the next thing you know, they said, hey, we've got this student housing deal at the University of Houston that we want you to oversee. So I was the project manager. I had a trailer out on site. And so I was at Century for 6 years in Houston. And from there, my best friend at the time started a company called American Campus Communities, which today just sold to BlackRockers in the process of being sold for $13 billion. So I went with him to Austin, second employee there. I set up and ran the development and construction management department for American Campus Communities for about 12 years. After that was with Campus Advantage, another Austin-based student housing company, for about 13 years. Bill and I now have been partners after I went out on my own for about 10 to 12 years. And like you said, we're opening our second very successful project right now in Athens. And we're looking forward to it.
Thank you. Todd?
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for giving us some insight into your background, and it seems like you're credible developers in this space. And you talked about your experience. I'm quite sure there's a bunch of questions in this room, but I'll start off by asking, what is your plans for this site for the Found? What's your vision for what's going to happen here? So I'm just going to start off with that question, then we'll go around the room, and I'm quite sure others have questions.
So the way we looked at it was, what's really important here in hierarchy, and having the church have an established presence in perpetuity. So that was number one. And number two was, how do we do it in a manner that the church stays financially solvent and financially strong? And so our approach is get the church in the position they need to be in, and then give them a recurring cash flow stream. And it's clear, what got me interested in this initially, actually, what really got me interested in this initially was, so my daughter just finished her freshman year here. And I dropped her off. I did everything that you're not supposed to do as a real estate investor. You let passion get in the way, right? You want to be cold and harsh and look at things in ones and zeros. And so I'm dropping my daughter off, and we're walking up and down 3rd Street, and I look at, I think it's Wida. Is that how you pronounce the name? Wida, thank you. I looked at Wida's sign, and I say to my daughter, I'm like, there's absolutely no way that's on campus. And she goes, come on, Dad, of course it's on campus. Just look around you. And I said, there's no way Purdue owns that. I want to buy it. And, fast forward a handful of months, and I'm sitting here talking to Rodney, and which is on this same block, and I just found it ironic. And so it didn't take long to figure out that this location will absolutely thrive. Yeah, I knew that if you put housing here, 100 years from today, it should still be fully occupied. And so getting back to what Todd had just asked, we're looking for a place to invest dollars, be your partner, 20 years from today, be your partner, 40 years from today, be your partner. And we look at this, I call it generational real estate. This is not something we're looking to merchant build and sell. This is an investment for all the right reasons.
I'm sorry. Does anybody want to start? Anybody have? I know you guys have seen the presentation. Are there any questions that arose from the presentation that you want to present to Bill and Ronnie?
Well, this is probably the obvious question, but one thing that's different about this project is the first floor. And what experience have you had with enterprises other than student housing and the buildings you build, and how did you match those two together?
So we have a fair amount of experience having non-housing or non-habitable real estate in our projects. So think of it like your first floor just being general retail. Personally, I hate having retail in my buildings unless you're in a very densely urban area with a lot of foot traffic. It's a tough mix. So if I can avoid retail in my properties, that is 100% my preference. We looked at this project like we like to underwrite. Ronnie yells at me because I'm always a little bit too optimistic. We like to put a lot of constraints on the project at the start. And if the project financially pencils at that point, then it makes sense to keep going further. And in this case, we looked at it on a 3-story build. And we did a wood frame building, 3-story build. If the project makes sense under those constraints, then if and when we go in front of the town, maybe we go for a 5/1. So if you look across the street, it's a 6-story building. Go down to the Gilbane project down on the left, that's another 6-story building. They're doing 5 stories over first floor podium. We more than likely, well, I don't want to speak out of turn for a second. It's possible to get that in a planning department approval, going to get PD rezone. And so we would go and seek that. But if for whatever reason we don't get that, then we know it works under a more conservative approach. And so, and then in the first floor, I look at student housing. If you look at the project we did in Auburn, which is in the presentation, I think the project we designed in Auburn is the quintessential live, learn student community in the country. And I say that because it houses 500 residents. There are 19 study rooms. The average property in that town houses 500 residents, and there's 1 study room. And so a student's job is to go to school and learn. Everything else is secondary. And so when you think of student housing, you have to keep that in mind at all times. And, when you look here on the island and you go look at Purdue's master plan flat out says, I want religious use, I want student resident life use, and I want housing. This project answers all 3 of those in one project. And if you look at the first floor, it's going to be a really creative design that we have to come up with, where how do you incorporate the church into, Ronnie and I were just talking about it ahead of time, how do you incorporate the church into the foot traffic of the residents coming in and out of the building? Also, how do you incorporate the church to the exterior and have all of those individuals come in and out of your building? Additionally, one of the things we haven't really talked about is, there's 6 things in student housing that I look for as an investor. There's curb appeal, safety, security, basic common area amenities, basic in-unit amenities, and a value proposition. Depending on where you are in the country, that hierarchy of needs changes. In Toledo, people make decisions over $5 a month, so value is number 1. Here, it could be safety and security. And so always think about it through the eyes of a father dropping off his daughter. What does that parent want? And everyone has a little different needs. And then when you add in the church's use, you need to think about how do you incorporate all of that, and how do you incorporate it through the flow of traffic throughout your building. So it's not, at this stage, we're far from a finished design. And Ronnie can really walk you through that. I mean, he's designed over 60 student communities.
Yeah, Craig, as far as was the question related to the experience on putting different uses in one building? Yeah, as far as mixing the uses, that's very simple. Even our project that we're currently doing in Athens, it's 5-story, there's a podium, and then below that, there's several different retail spaces. So whether it's retail, religious, I mean, it could be a myriad of anything. That's certainly something that we've done a lot of, and something that I think we would envision sitting down with you guys, and like Bill was mentioning, whether it's the egress to the building, does it go through here, really getting your input on the design when we're firstly starting out.
So you said 5 stories, right? 3-story build is where you're going to start with, right? And 3-story build with 200 beds, and it says create a class, a boutique student housing community. Say more about a boutique student housing and what that means, and what is 200 beds and 3 stories? What does that look like?
Well, I think just the boutique would reference just the size and scale of the project to start with. This is not, especially at 3 stories, it is a small project. Bill, I don't know if you'd have anything more to add to that. I mean, I think that's really what you're.
So is a boutique like a studio apartment? Is this, you got 200 beds? What does that mean?
We were
studios or 4, like my son in his college right now is like, they have a common area, then they got like 4 bedrooms, they got their own bath and their own room. But what does that look like is what I'm really getting
we
at.
use the word boutique because it made us sound intelligent. Now you're calling us out, which, thank you, Rodney. Ronnie's absolutely correct. Boutique meaning just small, and so you have to scale everything down, hence the boutique word. In terms of resident accommodations, we spec at this stage a 4-bedroom unit type.
Okay.
Because that allows you to have maximum density and minimal cost. Now, when we get into the actual design, maybe we have to have a different shaped building that goes on the site. We have to think about the parking for the church in the back. We have to think about how do we use the sorority's land. Do we go and buy the land and lease it back to them? Do we secure air rights and build over them? And then do we expand the footprint of the floor plates and then go vertical from there? And so ideally in student, 4 bedrooms are your workhorse. 2 bedrooms are your second most popular. And then you jam in 1s wherever you have a little bit of space, because 1s are obviously your most expensive to construct, because you have to build the foundation, you have to build the roof, and you have to build a kitchen for 1 resident. When you have a 4 bedroom, you have 1 roof, 1 foundation, 1 kitchen for 4 divided by 4. It's obviously a lot cheaper to do 4 bedrooms. And so again, getting back to Todd's initial question, we were thinking about how to maximize density, maximize return to the church, and think about longevity. Now, the funny thing that falls out of this is you desperately avoid 3 bedrooms. It's like, Sally and I know each other. We're going to go out, but Charlie's a third wheel. Right. And then, right. And then, but 4 bedrooms are your workhorse, obviously for the constructability of it. But Rodney and I know each other. Todd and Kevin know each other. The 4 of us come together and we all get to drop the cost of our living. So that's why 4 bedrooms are really popular. And when you think about a mixture of units, like a standard mixture is 60% 4 beds, 40% 2 beds. Or, maybe it's 50%, and then it's 30%, and then it's 10 and 10, right? So because of the uniqueness of the site and the building. But here in this location, for anything added, it's going to lease.
Yeah, I think it's almost more important to have as many beds as possible just because of the geometry and the size of the site being so small. And if we were to come in and put 1s and 2s, if you look at it on like a square footage per resident. So a 4-bedroom unit, I've got a fantastic unit that's about 1,200 square feet. So that's about 300 square feet per resident. And then you're dividing a kitchen by 4 people, not by 1 person. So if you did 1s and 2s, your square footage per person went way up. So you're going to lose beds and you're going to increase your cost. And on a small project like this, and like Bill said, we probably won't be able to do all 4s just because as the building turns or moves, you're going to have some odd corners and perhaps those become studio units. But I think with just the size of the site, I think you do all, do the most 4 bedrooms that you can, and whatever's left over fill in as necessary.
But that will obviously evolve as
Correct.
we go through the design process.
Yep.
Everything we're saying today, a month from today, could be all 2 bedrooms. It could be all studios. It could be a mixture. But this is how we thought about the project, and this is how we go into projects. So the development we did here in Georgia, it only has 25% 4s, and it has 60%, roughly 60% are 1s and 2s. So everything I just said to you in Georgia, it's the inverse.
So,
Hey, Bill, is that property in Georgia on campus or off campus?
Leonard, it's off campus by about 2 blocks.
Yeah, so what was interesting was when we met with Purdue, they made the comment that when if kids who lived in this property would probably want multi-unit spaces because they're still on campus, right? So that you talk about the camaraderie of being a college student and being on campus. And when they want 1s and 2s, they really want to be by themselves off campus, which I thought was an interesting perspective.
Yeah, that is an interesting perspective too, and I appreciate your comments on that. I mean, and it's all about the density. I mean, and because you do have to offset costs, but again, as you learned in Atlanta, at Georgia, and that I'm not, again, because of the size of the limited size, but there's no project that's 100% 4 beds that I'm aware of. No new project on campus that all the units are 4 beds.
Are you talking about just here at Purdue?
Yeah, I'm just talking about
okay,
here at
gotcha,
Purdue.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, again, and every community is different, and again, and I get the idea that it's the density piece of that, but it will evolve. But that I just, as a comment, I mean, any of the new projects aren't all 100% anything.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like I said, this won't wind up being that, but I do believe that the more 4 bedrooms you can put in, the better. But as the building geometry changes, you're going to wind up with some studios and some.
Yeah, it's marketing as well, right? You want to be able to appeal to people who are looking for singles and 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms as well, right?
Exactly. You look at ACC, and I think they coined the phrase, it's housing for the masses, not housing for the classes. You want to have a bed space for anybody who goes to school here. So if somebody is very well off and they want to pay for a very expensive 1 bedroom, I have a space for them. If someone's working their way through school and they need a more affordably priced bed, I have a space for that person. Again, I'm a dirty capitalist.
Parking, no parking on site. Do I interpret that correctly?
So, no, we understand that the church is having some parking is material, and we figured we're going to design around that. And right now we're walking the site earlier today. And so the parking that's out back more than likely could probably just stay. Maybe it gets moved down the alley a little, but we thought maybe we cantilever the second floor over that parking and then go vertical from there. In terms of parking ratio, I know the city likes to peg 30% of bed spaces to have that parked. We would go under the PD and try to seek a variant. Well, I call it a variance, but under the PD, we would seek not to have parking because, look, we're going to market and appeal to students of the university. They don't need a vehicle to go across the street and take a class. All right. Furthermore, if they're going out at night, I personally don't want my daughter driving. Go use an Uber, go take a bus, go with friends. I really don't want you having a drink and then driving back. And there are 2 parking garages that have been merged into one a block away. Students can go and get parking for the semester or parking for the year. And if you're a student, you can park there. So these would be our arguments we would use to try to get out of parking. Parking is expensive to construct, and there's very little revenue.
So let me ask you this. Is it more expensive to go underground for parking than have it above ground? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it would be significantly more expensive to go underground
Right.
versus above ground.
So then, is it a possibility if you have to have parking that you do it above since you're starting with 3 stories anyhow? Does that make any kind of sense? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I understand the question you're not asking, which is if parking is required, will you still do the project? And the answer is yes, we will.
Okay.
Did I
All
answer?
right.
Did I get your answer?
I mean, I just know,
we're not going to let parking get in the way of getting
Okay.
the project done. And
Gotcha.
if need be, what we would more than likely do is go down.
Yeah, we would
because-
likely build a level down.
You would
Because
go
guys
down.
so we're kind of looking at it like you guys are on the first floor.
Correct.
You're on ground floor, so we're not going to park above it. So we would have to go underground. So worst case would be parking, you guys, and then the students.
Now, as far as our first floor, right? How much, what's the word? Input do y'all want to have in what this first floor looks like? Who the designer is on this first floor, or architect for this first floor? I know you don't like retail for your buildings, however, there's a couple of things we may have in mind within our 10,000 square footage for some retail. Thoughts on that?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So your space, obviously, we're a team.
Mhm.
And so we want to be informed. We are not going to dictate how you design your church. All right. If you have a specific architect you want to do the interior design, we welcome that. If you want to use your space for retail, we welcome that. All right. Because it's your space. We want you to come work with us when we design the building. You know, we'll bring you behind the curtain and show you how we design the building in the residential units as much as you want. I do very much want your input on how the students access the building, how they utilize the first floor. I think it's incredibly important because, again, it gets back to the live-learn nature of this type of housing. And so it's incredibly important to have your input on how all of that works.
Captured exactly what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Hey, can I piggyback on that? Because let's go a step further, and I think we've had a bit of a conversation about this. Todd and I prefer to have our development partners for our clients provide what is basically a turnkey space. We're not interested. We've had a bad experience with our clients building out their own space and with a developer providing what is basically a vanilla box. So I want to make sure that you understand that, I mean, obviously we're gonna negotiate reasonable accessories and things that are going in that space. But we're expecting a turnkey space for the church.
I assume
Could-
the head nodding is you concur with that. That's
Yeah,
okay.
well, we can certainly work with you guys and oversee that process. And at the end of the day, when everything is done, you're ready to move in as well.
And one of the
Well,
questions that
wait, hold on. We also expect you to pay for it. I just want to make sure we're absolutely clear. Are the heads still nodding? Because I can't tell. The heads still nodding.
You have to take the next hard one.
Is that coming out of Ronnie's check? Is that why you're pointing?
That's a really good question because we were kicking around earlier today. What are the, where are the hard questions going to come from? And that was one that stuck out. And, that was not really identified or addressed in our proposal. And I went back and I was looking through the RFP and I didn't know if I missed it or what. And so, look, that's a discussion that we need to have on the table. I don't know if we're going to get to a conclusion tonight, but the answer is going to be, okay, we'll share a little in the pain, but how much are we talking as the cost? We were originally told the land was, I think, 1.85 million, and so we grossed that up to 2 million. So there's an extra 150 there. We can increase the price a little, but if it's a lot, we might look to you, the church, and say, okay, out of the $2 million, some of that cost needs to be borne by the church as well, because we need to make sure that the project is financially feasible.
Well, I think that, and I don't know if we discussed this before. As you see, this is a modest structure, and if I speak out of turn, Rodney, you let me know. They're not looking for gold line pews or crystal chandeliers, but the basics.
Only in my office.
Look, we get it.
We want supply. So it may be. Are we doing American Standard or Kohler toilets? Are we doing X amount of fixtures? And they don't really do pews. They do flex space. So. Just to say, the expectation is that it's delivered turnkey, and the only pushback you should have is, guys, you want a $500,000 sound system. We can't do that.
Right.
We get that. But
That's exactly what we were just throwing around. Look, if the cost is an additional 150,000, we'll do it. If the cost is an additional 500,000, okay, we need to have a conversation.
But I have a question. He just raised the sound system, and I'm very aware of the power of sound systems today, both in student apartments and in religious spaces. And I would like the Found not to have to listen to the students' music, and the students to not have to listen to the Found's music. So I had a house built, and I told the contractor I wanted the basement to be isolated sound-wise from the living quarters on the first floor. He said, "Oh yes, we'll do that." Well, not so much. And so, so the question is, how do you soundproof between those uses?
Well, the good thing is, so right now, the plan would be to do a podium on the first level. So the separation between the church and the students is 8 inches of concrete. So that should definitely do it. That's pretty good.
So, so guys, I don't want to be the bad guy, but I will be. This is important on a number of levels, and certainly the church will be reasonable and will come to a number that is comfortable for everybody and make sure that the project is feasible. Obviously, we need to have the project happen, whether it's with you guys or someone else. We need to have it happen anyway. So we are committed to making sure that it's a project that works for everyone. But what's important to understand is the Found is not in the position to fund the development of its own space, right? Let's be very clear about that. And if we do this project, we can't have a project that ultimately has, yes, we built 3 floors and 200 units of student housing, and the Found is not built, right? Like that would be an epic failure for everybody involved. So we have to come to some kind of agreement, not tonight, but we have to come to an agreement on what is reasonable, what is fundable, and what works to build the space. Because, you know, again, if we wound up with a revenue stream without a space, it would be viewed as a failure, not just for the Found and for Zion, but for WFI as well.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
We've touched upon this, and it's been talked around the edges, but what's you guys' approach to how you're going to get this variance? Right now, the site can be for religious uses, but it's really a one-story building. If you were to tear it down and not go for any type of change, you can do a one-story building in this place. So given the fact, I know you've done stuff all around the country, but given the fact that you're not based here in West Lafayette, what's going to be your approach to actually getting the variances or the approvals that you need in order to build the best spot here with the church and the maximum amount of housing?
So that's a good question. And to answer that question, so before we even made a proposal to you guys, we reached out to and interviewed several architects and have talked to them. In fact, Bill and I went and met with the principal this afternoon again, and feels very comfortable. The process would be to take it from what it is now and go into a PD rezoning, where essentially you go sit down with the city and you start from a fresh map. There's no setbacks, there's no nothing. And then you walk them through what you're wanting to do here. The architect felt strongly that doing a 4 or potentially 5 stories over one level of podium with the church below with housing above, which would very much match what's around us, would get approved. So he felt very strongly about that. So that would be our process, would be architect-led locally. The very first part of it would be to get some sort of plan together, and you can have a pre-app meeting with the city, go sit down with them, show them your plan, talk them through it, and then you go from there. He thought the overall process to get from start to the rezoning finish with a PD in hand is about 5 to 6 months, which was refreshing, because a lot of places it's much, much longer than that.
So I see on here real quick that potentially y'all would be ready to open 2024 of August. Is that realistic?
That's I would say a big potential.
So when this process was started and we first submitted our proposal, that was a higher likelihood. But it's important, Rodney, you're looking at it the right way. You want to look at it in reverse. When a parent comes to drop their child off, child needs housing, that apartment better be habitable. Okay? And then how many weeks do I need to put the furniture in? How many weeks do I need the staff comfortable with the building? When do I need to have my CO by? Certificate of occupancy. How long does it take to construct the building? Then you keep working your way backwards. Okay, how many months do I need for my entitlements? Now, and then how many months do I need for my construction drawings? I can get my entitlements, but I still have to do my construction drawings.
Right. And another thing that's really important too for students is not only are you going to be done, is the perception, are you going to be done? So when the parents come in May, which they just did, to load up the kids to take them back home, and they drive by here, and dad looks out, and there's guys swinging hammers, and all he sees is wood, and the daughter's saying, hey, I want to move in that new place. He's like, I am not driving you from Pittsburgh to up here to put you in a hotel. So you're going to live somewhere else. So it's very important to the perception. So like Bill said, we would sit down and kind of work the program backwards and see where we are. But I mean, clearly the goal would be to open it as soon as we can. And is that achievable? I mean, potentially, but
I did 197 beds in 11 and a half months. So yeah, it's achievable. It's a stretch. Additionally, operationally, just one quick anecdote. When you're marketing and managing a student community, leasing starts nationally October 1st. In some markets, you started a little early because you need a little extra time. In some markets, you started early because it's such an early market. Students have made decisions come spring break. And so if you miss the mark, you don't lease again until the next year. Very different than conventional. If you have vacancy in student, I like to say there's 2 leasing seasons in student. There's August and next August. Because if you have a vacant apartment, you sit on that for a year. There's no backfilling. Someone doesn't come to school from California and without having a bed.
And listen, and from a construction perspective, you're not building in Athens and Auburn either. So the weather's going to play a role as well.
And supplies. I want to go back to the question of the architect, because one of the things that I saw you were considering KJG. Is that still where you're meeting with Kelly?
yeah, we met within the day. We have not selected a team, but they're certainly a viable option and certainly have local experience and also an experience in this very type of structure. You know, wood frame, podium. It's very important that you have someone that has that kind of experience.
So let's stay there for a minute. I know a couple of our alumni, most recent alumni, Liz, who just got married last weekend, is not able to make it tonight. But they have 2 concerns. One is your history and your projection of building environmentally, right? How important, I mean, what have you done just recently, maybe in Alabama, as far as the environment and having that in your mind? And the history of diverse opportunity of workers and vendors and contractors. Need to know, you know, how much you have given opportunity to those from diverse groups and building this group, building here if you are the partner. Because that's very, very important to them and me, by the way.
So one thing as it relates to the environmental side of it, I guess one of the most recent projects I've done was in Pittsburgh. It was a high rise that was built and it wound up being certified LEED Gold. However, I will tell you, the city, which was brilliant, they had a density bonus. So they said, if you build to LEED Silver, we just happened to get gold because I wanted a little fluff there, we'll let you have an extra floor on your building. Because at the end of the day, it's our experience that the students are not willing to pay if I have a LEED Gold building or a LEED Silver building. They look at it like I'm paying $800 a month. That's fantastic that you've done all these things, but I'm not paying you for it. So all it does is add a lot of cost to the project. They were very smart. They said, okay, we understand that, so we're going to give you something.
But in the traditional builds that we do take it seriously because there's a financial benefit for us.
Yes.
So all the appliances are all energy rated. All of the lighting is all
LED. Well, and with today's new energy codes, I mean, they keep upping them and upping them. These buildings are super tight.
Oh, the thermal
and they're
barrier.
very efficient.
The thermal barrier, you can light a Bunsen burner and heat the apartment.
Yeah, with
it's
the
crazy.
new energy codes.
And, you know, everything is smart this and smart that. So you're not building a new building today without having thermostats that you can control yourself wirelessly. I just bought a building April 1st in Charleston, South Carolina, and it was built by a publicly traded REIT. So I can't mention the name because I'm making fun of them for a second. They have thermostats in the hallways like you have in your house. So you can walk down the common hallways and change the common temperature per floor.
Really?
If you're in a colder weather climate like here, what do you think your costs are in the wintertime?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
And
so one,
so-
and one thing we do too, so all the utilities are typically included in the rent, however, with a cap. So, because what we'll do, we'll purchase directly from the power company, master meter the project, and then individually meter the units. So we'll buy power in bulk, so we get a better rate because we're guaranteeing them so much usage. And then the students will have a cap. Let's just say it's a 4-bedroom apartment. So perhaps the cap is $100, so $25 per bedroom. And what that does, that prevents them from, if it was just free, there was no cap, from cranking the AC to 70 and leaving the windows open, or abusing basically the power itself.
And when you have the smarter thermostat, you can put bounds on it.
Right.
So that individual can go there and keep hitting the button to turn the AC down. And it might say 60 degrees, but it stops at 67. They don't know that.
So there is a fine line on like the energy efficiency, like I said, with the new codes. However, the type of light bulbs we use in the hallways, because those also affect the operating cost, which if you can lower those, will drop right to the bottom line.
But it also gets down to what kind of flooring do you use? So are you going to carpet it, or are you going to use LVT? Everyone likes to say luxury vinyl tile. It's vinyl tile. All right. But it's really good quality vinyl tile. You get the wider planks that are thicker and heavier that have sound attenuating benefits. So the sound transfer coefficient on it's a little higher, so you don't hear everybody bouncing around upstairs. But the great thing is, let's say someone's smoking in the apartment, which they're not allowed to, by the way. You're not allowed to have anything that's lit in our apartments. But say that they leave a cigarette on it overnight, lit the entire time. Doesn't burn a hole in it. Doesn't even mark it. All right. But we're all talking about LEED, but nobody ever thinks about, okay, what if I carpet the unit? Every 4 or 5 years, I have to rip out the carpet and replace it. So if you use vinyl, that's going to last a very long time. So the amount of waste that's going to the landfill every 5 years is materially reduced. So there's a lot of different ways to answer the question. And at the end of the day are you willing to give up dollars on your annual distribution, and how much are you willing to give up?
And as far as the minority participation, I mean, if there are certain targets that we collectively want to meet, we can certainly do that. I've done that.
So to answer that question, we have a long history of working with the best of the best. In Georgia right now, H.J. Russell is constructing our project. H.J. Russell is minority owned. They are incredibly well known. I would love to have them do this project here. We've talked to them about it. We've also talked to Power and Sons. They're based here in Indiana. They'd be fantastic for it. Our counsel that we've used for more than a decade is Taft. And they're a super regional law firm. They have an office here in Indy. We have our lead counsel is a male, and then we have 2 female attorneys that would be perfect for this project. We mentioned KJG. We like them because of local knowledge and how to get it through the entitlement process. But we've also had conversations with Meticulous to come in. So yes, look, and then here's facts. The facts on our national portfolio right now: 47% of our employees are white, 30% are African American, 15 Latino, 3% Asian, 4% 2 or more, and 1% other.
On your staff, you just said?
Yeah. And so it's important to have staff members that represent the community. And because when you're dealing with students, it's really important to have what are called community assistants or ambassadors. You and I call them interns. And it's because those individuals go out into their peer group and they market your property to them. And so you need to have your finger on it. Gets back to having your finger on the pulse. And student housing is a woman-dominated business. Women tend to be the property managers. Female students tend to come and seek internships first. Female students tend to rent first, guys follow. It's everyday life. I do what my wife tells me to do. And so, but then it gets back to how do you design a building? You know, curb appeal, safety, security, basic common area amenities. You know, this is all, again, you got to think about it through your target audience. And I like to call them clients. And because we're delivering them a good and then the service of housing.
I want to go back a little bit. I want you to push a little bit more on your, you call it generational build, right? I think that's the language you used. And you also talked about, you know, you being 49, me being 50 something. This building is older than me, by the way. I like to say that. How often are you in conversations with young adults, like your daughter, if you would, as to know more about what are they looking for and what their needs are? You know, how often are they at the table with you, the younger generations?
Daily. And so me personally, not daily, somebody in my organization, daily. Yeah. Hourly is really the answer. And so I like having older individuals manage my properties on site because they're more experienced and they're able to say a 2-letter word that's incredibly important, and that's no. And if you have a young individual managing your asset, because this is not a piece of real estate, this is an operating business. You know, I think we used $24 million on our development cost. It's a $24 million operating business, and I don't want to put that in the hands of a 23-year-old. Right? I need somebody who can say no to a 22-year-old. I also need somebody who's going to be able to put their arm around them and say, "You screwed up. We understand that. I too was once 22.
Right.
Here's how we're going to fix it. It's not a problem." Right? Because you need to be able to do both. And so having somebody that has experience in student housing is important.
One of the questions. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. One of the questions we've had is, what kind of living codes for the people who would live in this apartment?
Is there anything more specific in that, or
not really? Can somebody help me out here? Covenants. Yeah, covenant living.
Yeah. So the simple way to look at it, Gordon, is we're building. So in Georgia, we're building a $52 million building. We're taking on $30 million of debt from a large money center bank. You are not allowing the students to run the property. It's a very institutional project. And so with that comes in your lease expectations of the resident base. But it's a fine line you need to walk because it is a private apartment. And, you know, they need to enjoy their stay and live comfortably. But they have to treat my property as they treat mom and dad's house. Well, you want to make it a house. You want to make it a community. You have to make it that community.
What we've kind of watched happen in our community successfully was the gnashing of probably some misunderstandings with a local, well-regarded church who built student housing within the city of West Lafayette off campus. And there was reason to believe in the community, and I don't really know where it came from, but probably somewhat valid, that organization would only allow certain religious faiths to live there. And that pure and simply wasn't going to cut it out in our city and with our mayor and with our Human Relations Commission, and probably wouldn't be embraced by the Found.
So we have to adhere to fair housing. So it ends and starts right there.
This is a minutia question, and you can tell from it I'm not an investment banker. On page 20, it talks about the years sold. Is that just the notion that at that point the debt's been paid? Sorry. I'm stunned that I even found that level of detail.
I was told there'd be no math.
What what does it mean by years sold? Because we're talking about generational ownership and stuff.
So I forgot to take that out. Is the simple answer.
That's good enough for me.
Okay. So originally, when I did the presentation, you want to derive, because it's an investment, you want to derive a return. And so you have to have a terminal value to derive that return. And so in this case, it was originally year 10. That has since been stripped. And so when you go and you look at page, good for you for catching the mistake, though. I'm sure there's another one. If you go and look at page 26. So 26, all you see are annual cash flows. You do not see a terminal value and terminal funds coming back to the foundation. And so in this conservative scenario that we use with the 200 beds and the 3 floors, you have 3.7 million in total cash flows over 10 years coming to the foundation. And that breaks up between around $1.5 million from annual cash on cash, so annual distributions from the business, and then a little over $2 million, almost $2.2 million coming from refinance proceeds. And so these are important points to realize. And additionally, one other thing is, obviously you guys own your condo, so we're not charging you rent.
So okay. You're thinking about 3 stories in this proposal that you got here so far, but you mentioned the possibility maybe of 4 or 5, or maybe even 6, depending on the planning.
So it just so happened.
And then secondly, another thing that you said was something about cantilevering over the sorority space. I've never heard anything about any sorority negotiations in this.
Well, I think the cantilever was for the parking.
Oh, I know what he's talking about.
Right.
But I never heard anything about the sorority.
No, that was literally just a thought we had today when we were walking around. We pulled up the appraiser's website and who owns these parking spaces, and it's the sorority. I'm like, well, geez, if you could maintain the spaces, maybe you go buy the air rights from them and put the building over the top of their spaces, and their spaces stay there, and give them some fee for building
But that makes a whole different concept in the building, which is, possibly very good.
Right. And
So
I mean,
I'm
maybe
wondering-
it doesn't work, but it's certainly something worth exploring.
We also assumed, we also have scenarios where we add more beds because we add density. We also have scenarios where we do more beds, but we have higher debt, so less equity is required. We use 65% leverage in our base case. Right now, construction debt, I think you can get up to 65. When we did Georgia, it maxed at 60. It wasn't that long ago. You can get up to 70, 75. The issue is when you get above 65%, who's signing personally on the loan? Would you like to sign? Gordon? You're welcome to. So, but we don't, look, we embrace debt, but we're very aware of debt.
So,
Which is,
Gordon,
it's
they can't
not,
hear
but
you.
in 2 years, I think it's coming back down.
I said, but the interest rates are not going in a favorable direction at this point.
Right. So I just saw that, and I was just speaking with Todd, so because others might see this too, and I wanted to bring it to the floor, and that is on one of the where it says that you support more density. We have the capital willingness, the desire to develop a larger community of house more residents, doubling the size of beds from 200 to 400, which would be like a $42 million development, potential cash flow to BSF. Now that was shift. So that being said, and the way the equity return debt refinancing. So you do plan on refinancing in the first 3 years or at the third year?
Typically, that's third year of operations. That could easily be the fifth year of the loan. So,
got you.
okay. Does everybody understand that?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 years to construct from the time of the project starts.
Right.
Till it's completed. So 3 years after stabilization.
Right.
After.
Gotcha.
Where it's cash flowing.
So that might be, that's more like 5 years in.
There are many different ways to finance this project. We thought about a number of them. There's a plain vanilla debt equity. You can do higher leverage. You can use debt fund money. You can even go and do bond financing that's tax exempt.
Yeah.
You know, there's many different ways to skin this cat. And I think the most affordable option for the church right now is a simple, plain vanilla deal. If you look at bond financing, that tax exempt, the devil's really in that details, man. I'm telling you, you can add 20% to the cost of your project without even knowing it. You got to pay 7 to 10 points just to the bond and the person the Wall Street guy who sells the bonds to the public. You have the developer takes all of his profit out up front. You guys own apartments. The developer sold a condo, and he goes home. And so here, we are a generational partner. My equity is sitting pari passu with you guys,
right,
forever, right? Because that's I don't necessarily want to sell. I really personally want to just hand it down to my kids, and then have them hand it down, And so, and additionally, you look, debt right now, historically, is still affordable. 2 months ago, it's expensive compared to where it was. So when we first submitted this proposal, we had a market rate debt in there. I did not want to change the proposal we sent in. I wanted to keep that. We would have to change it daily with the debt markets today. The debt markets are in such flux. Personally, I think they're going to stay in flux for another couple of years. And then I could see debt rates coming down. Years 3, 4, 5. I won't bet on it. And so when you look at our refinancing assumptions that we put in here, I think we increased the debt rate by 125 basis points, 1.25%.
Mm-hmm.
So we were trying to be somewhat conservative.
Let me ask you this. So 3 stories, 200 beds. It looks like it'll be a 23.8 and 26.2 split, correct? Of equity. Yet, if you decide to build more, it looks like it goes from 23.8 down to 13.54, and from 76.20 to 86.46 for you all. Why the change in the debt in the equity based on the number of bed or based on the project?
Because the amount of equity required has increased. So if the church is receiving $2 million for the contribution of their property, and we need $10 million of total equity, the church has a 20% equity ownership. If all of a sudden we need $20 million of total equity because the project doubled in size, now the church has 2 over 20 or 10%. And when I was in banking and we were dealing with companies, private companies, and we were doing equity raises for them, this conversation would always come up. And the answer to the question is always, would you rather have, a slice of a pie that is this big or a slice of a pie that is... And so you really want to think about it in amount of financial benefit coming back to you, the church. And in the first scenario, it's roughly $3.7 million.
Yeah.
In the second scenario, I don't know what the number is offhand, but let's just say it's $6 million. And so it really is, take the percentage away. Don't focus on that. Really focus on the financial benefit for the church.
Okay. I don't really understand what you just said, but I'll let I'll let the consultant we going to need to have dinner afterwards. He'll explain a little bit more for me.
That's something we can explain in more detail over time. But even when Rodney showed me, he wanted to go over it quickly here, it's forget the percentage. He saw that the dollar figure for the higher percentage actually was lower than the dollar figure for the lower percentage. So at 23%, it was like $175,000 a year. At 13%, it was 225. So it's not direct. It doesn't seem like it's direct correlation, but to Bill's point, if they have to, your equity is $2 million.
Right.
That doesn't change.
Right.
The required equity may change, so it may be higher. But also to that point, if the required equity is lower, then your dollar
percentage
figure
would
may
go up.
change. But
Right.
focus on the bottom line dollar figure rather than
the percentage. I got
Yeah,
it.
I understand that, but
got you.
one of
I
the
got you.
questions I always ask in these things is, the one that has the 80% equity runs the project. What power do we have with our 20 or 10 or whatever?
Now that
And,
is a good question.
And I'm always quite interested in knowing the answer to that, because we don't want you telling us what we can do in our space. I have finally figured out that probably we're going to pay the utilities, which will be determined for our space, which would be determined by how much we use it. And sewer, probably going to be one sewer line going out. But
So-
who controls what?
All right, so that's a really, really good question. Okay, and so that's a question that has multiple parts to it. So there's one part in operations, and then there's another part in use. I'm thinking of operations through what I'm going to call an operating agreement, and I'm thinking of use as in utilities. And so the utility question is, think of it like your condo in a condo building. And so you pay for your utilities. All right. And if there's a utility like water or sewage that has to go through the building, then there will be a common area charge, a common area maintenance charge. And so we share it. If I have 80% of the building, you have 20% of the building, we split it 80-20. I pay 80%, you pay 20%. Okay. And so that's how these things get done. And then in an operating agreement, so if you go to a building that has a bunch of retail units on the first floor, okay, and they have to share something like snow removal. Snow removal benefits everybody. And you have your retail square footage is 10% of the building, you pay for 10% of the snow removal. We just send you a bill for that. Pay for it. All right. And then in an operating agreement, it's a legal document that says how we work together. And it will stipulate, I can't boot you, all right, unless there's some egregious action that is never going to happen, right? It's something unthinkable, right? And you can't boot me unless there's something wildly egregious. And it will also have legal nuances in there. Let's say, for instance, I want to sell my ownership. We can literally negotiate that says, I have to come to you and offer it to you guys first. And then after so many days, if you decline it, then I can go and offer it to the public. So it's getting back to the initial question, you guys need a location that's a forever location that you guys ultimately can control. We need the flexibility. If we want to monetize, we can monetize. We need to finance our portion of the building as we see fit. You can finance your portion of the building as you see fit, which is another thing maybe you haven't considered. You can probably mortgage your condo. I would not suggest going high on the leverage, though.
If you just said something that I understood for a second, but had a question. So if you change how much you've financed, what does that do to the equity?
That's another good question. So your ownership percentage stays always the same. So if you have a 25% ownership position, and at the end of the third year of operations, we refinance and we're able to return all of our equity that we invested, say you're $2 million, and all that $2 million comes back, you still own 25% of the building,
Mhm.
of your everything other than your condo, which you own 100% of.
Right.
So I guess to clarify, I just thought condo was just the term, but you really are going to legally condoize the space.
That's the cleanest way that we've thought
Okay,
about
that's
it.
I
Yeah.
just want you said it directly that way, and my
Sure.
first impression was just the concept of condo space, but the legal condo, so they
Yep.
would the found would own the space.
That's right. So you guys will have the title to it. You will have an investment in the rest of the building. That investment hopefully is profitable, sends you a distribution each quarter. That's a distribution stream that you can utilize to run your condo. You can go get a real estate loan or on your condo. There's, yeah, it's asset value.
That's something I haven't thought about. Yeah. Our Zoom participants, any questions? Anyone?
I have a question regarding the demographic information that was in the report, and I can't remember what page, but my question is, what percentage of your ROI is predicated on your demographic projections? You project a consistent growth, and is any part of the investment or return on the investment predicated on growth of the student population?
So when we do developments, we like to look at them in a vacuum. We don't assume growth at the university. We don't assume deterioration of supply off campus. So we look at it in a vacuum. We also look at it as the number of students that need to come off campus to find a bed. And then we take that number of students and we subtract all of the purpose-built student housing communities we know of in the area. And whatever is remaining, we want to have less than a 10% share of that population. So the smaller we need out of that population, the higher chance we have of getting to fully occupied. So if we're going to have 200 beds, and what is there, 10,000 beds on campus roughly, and there's 41,000 total students, there's 31,000 students every single day walking across the street. I know there's a number of student communities in this area. I know a lot of the owners. You know a lot of the owners. And let's just say that there's 5,000 or 10,000 beds. There's still 20,000 students. And if I need 200 beds out of 20,000 students and I'm 2 blocks off the epicenter of campus, I really don't need to do any more math than that, knowing exactly what we're going to build. Now, getting back to the demographic question of, you need to make sure in today's world, when you're building a Class A asset. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. The cost to construct is too expensive to build a non-Class A asset. So we are going to be achieving Class A rents. And so that does potentially reduce your sample size of who can be in your target market. That target market here in Purdue is very large. I do not worry about filling the property. Also, we don't assume hyper growth in our rents. I think we use 2 or 2.5% a year, between 2 and 2.5% a year. And, inflation this year is going to be 7 or 8 or 9, right? So I think that answers.
I have another question struck me. This building's going to be insured.
Absolutely.
The whole building or your part of the building, and we insure our
Well, that's
part
a
of the
good
building?
question.
That is a good question.
And liability?
That's a good question. Let me get my insurance consultant on the phone. So what we can probably do to help you guys is put you into the pool that we're in. And so we utilize a pool ourselves, and that gets us better pricing than one-off assets. I will tell you that insurers like assets in this region We own an asset in Toledo, Ohio, and I wish I had a lot of Toledo, Ohio's because it's not in a wind zone, it's not in a hail zone, it's not in an earthquake zone.
Yeah, you guys would definitely want to carry liability
Yeah.
on your
Oh,
side
absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be on your dime, but you can potentially participate in our pool. Now, I'm just thinking out loud, which I probably shouldn't be doing.
Any other questions from Zoomers? Josh, Ben, Ian, Leonard, you want to jump in? Chris? Let's see.
So just a question about the anticipated revenue stream. I think I had some notes here that over the first 10 years, the foundation will receive the value of the land back plus approximately 160,000 annual revenue. Is that, am I right on that, or is that could change?
Yes. So what was in the presentation was 3.7 million of total cash flows coming back to the foundation.
Okay.
And that's in a combination of, I didn't fill it out here. That's in a combination of refinancing proceeds and annual distributions.
What page do you see 3.7 million coming back to us at?
Oh, I have it in my notes, Rodney. It should, here. Let's see.
I think that's a congregation. That's a.
You have to add, right? Probably a bunch of different.
It's in page 26.
So I'm looking on 26.
So if you add up, see the total cash flow line?
Total cash flow, uh-huh.
If you add all those up.
Got you. Thank you.
And another thing to note is, obviously, you're in here rent-free.
Right.
And the other thing too is all of our interests are aligned. So when we're making money, you're making money.
Right.
There's never a scenario where we do great and you don't do great.
See, now, but
Amen.
You guys we're tax sensitive. You're not tax sensitive, which is it's.
Yeah.
So you guys don't get the benefits of depreciation. We are going
Right.
to get the benefits of depreciation.
Right.
But we lose the 24% that you guys own. We lose that 24% you get, but you just can't use it.
Depreciation, y'all lose on that too. Okay.
What would be incredible is if you could sell that, but you're not allowed to.
It just struck me, how's the heating and cooling going to be done? Will they be separate for our space?
Yeah, we would have complete separate units for your space. It'll likely be rooftop mounted units.
Okay.
So just to close the point about if you do a 400 unit or 400 bed facility, that $3.7 million is over $6 million. So while the percentage is 12% or 14% instead of 23%, the absolute dollar amount, is almost doubles.
That's correct. And then I even have a scenario here where Kevin lends us 75%. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
So, Randy, did you have a question? You really? Okay, cool. So I see projections, or I see a performer for 10 years. Do we expect that to remain the same, or it's pretty fluid? 1 through 10. So 10 through 20, 20 through 30, etc.
So the way I would, yes.
How would you look at that?
Yeah, you would look at it. It's a tough. I don't like answering the question because it's projecting out into a crystal ball.
I got you.
Yeah, I don't want to mislead you.
Yeah.
But the reality is, yes, we should be increasing our NOI disproportionately to our rents that we're achieving. And so what that means, Rodney, is your bottom line income. Bottom line income should grow at a faster rate than the top line. All right, you should have margin expansion over the years. And we should be able to utilize that to refinance the property every 5, 7, or 10 years. And we should be able to take those proceeds and put them into our pockets. And then use, the way I'm thinking about it is we use reasonable leverage. We have the value of the asset increases. We can then refinance, pay off our existing loan, put a little bit of money in our pocket, use the next 7 years to continue to distribute cash while amortizing the debt and paying it down, and then doing it again, and then doing it again. Right now, what I can't tell you is what are debt rates going to be? What's the market going to be for leverage in the future? There's the unknown. Is Purdue going to be here in 10 years? Now, the reality of that is that's a bet I'm willing to take.
Right. What determines the time to refinance? Because I see you do it in like 3 years, and then 7 years later. What's the determining factor when the refinancing happens?
So the very first refinancing is when the construction loan comes due. There's a lot of different construction loans you can take. You can do a construction to what's called a mini perm. But what we assumed here was a traditional 3-1-1. So a 3-year construction loan with 2 1-year extensions. So we could refinance at the end of the first year of operations. We could wait to the end of this second year, I'm sorry. We could end waiting to the end of the 3rd year of operations. I just assume we did it at the end of the 3rd year of operations, and then we put ourselves on a 7-year schedule. Every 7 years we refi.
Okay.
Now, if rates bottom out like they did 2 years ago, I'm running down here and saying, hey, bud, we're refinancing. And then, maybe we do it again. Maybe, right?
Gotcha.
But refinancing has costs to it too. Every time you do it, you have to redo all the closing costs, which on a commercial level are not inexpensive.
Have y'all thought about like a master lease with Purdue? Or
Yeah, I
conversation?
dream like everybody else. Sure. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Master lease with Purdue. Having Purdue master lease the apartments would be golden if they would do something like that for us actually. Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah, the benefit obviously is you take risk off the table.
Right.
And it becomes a mission critical asset.
Right.
And like I said, getting back to the initial comment, look, this is potentially generational real estate, and that really makes it ironclad if that ever were to materialize.
I had a question about talk about the operational budget and the way you've broken it out, that you've got staffing plus management company. So the management company is actually here and running it, and then so the other staffing, that's like corporate overhead. Is that? I mean, because you've got like 100, I don't know, 8 and 9 of your questions and answers of breaking out of the personnel. So you've got like $100,000 between a property manager and leasing agent, and then you've got another $200,000 in management or in third party management.
That's right. So you have to keep in mind, this is student housing. This is not conventional. This is not senior housing.
Oh, no.
This is not office space. You're dealing with a young renter who's never lived on their own before. And so just the inherent cost of running a student community is materially more expensive than a conventional property. Staffing is one of the areas. Having the right property management oversight is another. When you think about maintenance, okay, maintenance is not just repairs and maintenance. It's also turn and CapEx and one-offs. You got to add all 4 of those together to come up with what your maintenance is per year. So when you look and compare a conventional property to a student property, insurance is insurance, property taxes are property taxes. Those are all static, and then there's a bunch of other small little line items that are pretty much the same. But what's unique is staffing, insurance, property management, CapEx, turn. If you've never done term before,
So maybe explain to them what term is, because
Sure.
some of them are not familiar.
So you have to think about it this way in a student community is, and everyone lives in this area. School lets out, everybody leaves. School starts again, everybody shows up. Everyone leaves on the same day, everyone shows up on the same day. In the off-campus apartment space, on July 15th, everybody leaves. On August 1st, everyone shows up. You have 2 weeks to make every single apartment ready for that move-in. And so if you need to do physical work to the building, if you need to operationally restaff, if you need to do whatever, you got 2 weeks to get it done. And you have to assume 100% of your beds are leaving and 100% are moving in. Now, in reality, you have renewals. We love renewals because renewals, I don't have to turn over that bed space. And, every renewal saves me on average, depending on the property, $150 to $200 in operating costs. And the golden threshold in Class A is 30% renewals. Our portfolio is averaging around 45 to 47 right now.
I have a lot of kids, and I can tell you that
Do you need bed spaces?
No, sending them off to college without knowing how to plunge a toilet and without knowing how to take a broomstick and get the disposal working again. There are an amazing number of roommates that my kids have had who did not have those basic skills. It's amazing to me that people would send their kids off to college not knowing how to plunge a toilet and get a disposal unstuck, but that's the reality.
That's right. And so it's important to have, our on-site maintenance manager needs to have the personality that he can deal with these issues.
So that being said, so you would have your own management company, or would you look for somebody local?
So we're
Or how
not
would that-
vertically integrated, so I don't do day-to-day operations. We do asset management, and so we're property managers' nightmare because we ride them and then ride them again and then ride them again. In student housing, it's Groundhog Day every day of the week. So what you do on Monday, you have to do on Tuesday, and you have to do the remainder of the week, and then the week starts over again the next week. And I will go to my grave believing this. 90% of success in student housing is adherence to the basics. You just have to do the basics. 10% is positioning, luck, whatever else. And so I put in, I think in our answers, we've used Cardinal and CLS. Cardinal's already in this market managing an asset. CLS is managing now 6 of our properties nationwide. Both of them have experience in boutique assets. Both of them have experience managing assets on campus. They would be perfect for this.
I have one more question, I think. So these are 10-month leases, correct?
No,
No,
they're 12-month
they
leases.
are 12-month leases. But kids don't stay here 12 months.
But they pay.
Understood.
So it's a private off-campus house. And so they rent for the year. It's really, if you want to get hyper technical, it's an 11.5-month lease paid in 12 monthly installments unless they renew it. And so some kids may live in Indiana, might be in driving distance, might want to come back for a summer class, might want to come back for the weekend. It's their apartment. They get to use it
Can they sublease?
with our approval, and they have to pay a fee.
Because that's what a lot of them do, I think.
Leases
They
during the
sublease
summer.
to summer students.
Well, we will be on top of that.
Yeah.
It's very, very important to control who comes in and out of your building.
Any other questions from our online? Oh, including builder's risk insurance. That's what Josh said. No question from me tonight. What does he mean by including builder risk insurance?
I guess if the question is, are we including it? The answer is yes. That certainly would have builder's risk insurance.
So that was in the development budget. If you flip to whatever, hold on, I'll find it.
And that was quite a while ago while we were speaking about insurance. I'm not concerned. It was just when we were talking about it. So just mentioning insurance. As
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No question. No
All
question.
right, got it.
But I
Thank
found
you.
it and I want to answer it.
Go
Hey.
ahead. Go right ahead, Bill.
Oh, it's we used $200,000 in the development budget for Builder's Risk. Builder's Risk has really gapped out in the last couple of years. Very expensive now.
That's the real reason I mentioned it.
Got you.
Because it is expensive, yes, but necessary.
Got you. Charlie, Sally, Gordon, tech gentlemen.
Man, we got Gordon, no questions. That's impressive.
Randy, Kevin, Todd, they all good? You good, Todd?
We were interviewing a potential pastoral associate, and at one stage, does anybody other than Gordon have a question?
Right. Leonard, any final thoughts or questions?
Now, listen, as I said last week, this is a real opportunity to get to know what ultimately will be your partner in a long term, or what we hope to be a very long-term marriage. So the numbers are important. The structure of the deal is important. The legal mumbo jumbo, all that is really important. But what's most important is that you feel comfortable with the partner that you're engaging with. Because again, you choose the wrong partner, you're stuck with them, or it's going to be a really messy divorce, right? And we don't want that. So we want to select properly now. The reason for the face-to-face is just that, so that we can look you in the eye, ask you the questions, and feel good about the person that we're partnering with. So, fortunate for us, we got two great partners, two great potential partners. And now we got a tough decision to make. Bill, we're probably going to have more questions. There's certainly going to be more negotiations. We appreciate the fact that the proposal you put together was based on a set of assumptions and information, much of which we don't have yet, right? So we have to make assumptions. This deal is going to change. I anticipate that it's going to change dramatically because we don't even know what we can build at this point. That's why getting to know you and understanding who you are as people and who you are as a business is really important, because when we find out that, we can build 5 stories or 6 stories or 3 stories, we know who that partner is, and we know that we're going to be treated fairly. So that's all I have to say. I mean, I started the conversation last week with that speech. I wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page, including our potential partners, understanding that in the coming days, weeks, we're going to come back to you with some tough questions to really get an understanding of what this deal is going to look like based on a different set of assumptions. For example, what if we build, 8 stores? Or what if we can only build 2? Or what if we have to provide parking? What does it look like? And so just, be prepared for that. We're going to draw it out. We're going to try to get to a quick decision so that everybody can kind of move on and we can start this process for real.
Thank you, Leonard. Any final thoughts, Todd? Are you good? So before I ask Pastor Ian, First Baptist Monticello, to close in a word of prayer, I'm going to ask Ronnie and Bill to give us some final thoughts. Why this place and why now? Why do you all want I think I heard your answer earlier, Bill, but reiterate it for me. Why do you want to partner with the Found to build on this project with us, and why now?
And why are you the best people for the job?
Good question.
Well, I think as far as the best people, I don't have any knowledge of who we're against. I will say all I've done my entire career, which is about 30 years, have done student housing across the entire United States, from California to New York to Florida to Arizona, all different kind of product types. This very specific product type, very comfortable with it. So from an execution perspective, there's no doubt in my mind that we can get this done.
So I'll take the passionate answer. It's not hard to realize that you're sitting on a really good asset and at a phenomenal university in a wonderful community. And I have, unfortunately, personal feelings because my daughter goes to school here. And it would be great to have a reason to come out here frequently to see her. She's my oldest. This would be a perfect school for my second, but who knows? And in fact, my nephew is coming here the weekend of November 5th because he wants to be an engineer. So it's one of the schools he's going to consider. But we're going to go up north and see a football game that weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope you don't think they're all getting free housing.
I didn't hear what he said. Oh, no, we don't give that away.
That's good. So I want to thank each and every one of you all for your time and your presence and your service here and helping us with this really crucial decision that we have to make. And ultimately, we hope and pray to be in line with the God of the universe to make this decision on who our partner will be. And so we don't have a time frame yet. Do we have a time frame we're going to make a decision?
We got pushed back somewhat, but not really a decision, but when we were going to meet to discuss. So,
Right.
But we didn't say that it was definitive that we had to have a decision. But it's coming up on June. But obviously,
Right.
we can decide that in short order. That it really shouldn't take us more than 2-3 weeks. Just through phone conversations with the board to discuss any questions that they have, aggregate the questions that they have, and get it back to the two different developers, and then certain things that we're going to push each developer on that may fine tune our decision. If there's something that said, well, we like you, but we want you to do this, are you going to agree to it?
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
we gotta want to get a kidney from Bill. We gotta ask for that up front.
I've got.
Go
as
ahead,
You
go
might
ahead.
know one more question.
Sure.
The found space and their potential investment cost is going to depend on our program statement, which we don't have.
Program statement?
Our program statement. What space do we have to have? Not 10,000. What specific space needs office, kitchen, storage? We have to come up with one of those, and how fast can we come up with that? Because that's going to be crucial.
No, that's a fantastic point.
It's
And, you know,
I was involved in the design of a building at Purdue, and I know it's a job, and we
Pantry
have to do
space
that.
and pantry space too and all that, right?
They can't plan on.
Gotcha. Right. So, that being said, we got to gather this information and present to the board whom we think would be the best partner for us, and then you all will be. Either way, you'll be informed.
Wonderful. Look, we're honored to be here. Love to be part of this. Thank you.
Yeah, your time is very much appreciated, and also getting to know you guys and the thoughtful questions as well. Because, as you're looking at us as a partner, I flew from Florida up here to see you guys as well. And like you said, this is a marriage,
Right?
Like who are we
Right.
potentially, hopefully, lucky enough, want to work with you guys, but are going to be partners with for a very, very long time as well. So
Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
So, Ian, Pastor Ian, I'm going to
Yes.
ask you to close us in a word of prayer, and please let's remember the communities who've been struck with violence. And as you close us in prayer, Buffalo, Milwaukee, Texas, California, so let's remember those families and the communities who are traumatized for life in your closing prayer. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, real quick, I wanted to just mention a few months ago at a conference talking about churches and following the Spirit and things, especially in situations like this, the key distinction between being discerning versus being deciding. And instead of just saying, oh, well, let's just think, well, what's best, and make a decision, say, no, we've got to pause and open our hands to God and say, discern what you have for us. And so that's certainly to be on our minds through this process. But yes, our hearts are definitely heavy, especially with the community in Texas tonight. It's angering and hurting, and yes, we need God. Well, let's pray together. God, as we come to you tonight, we thank you that you are so much greater, so much wiser than any of us. And so we come as one seeking you. We come uplifting a ministry here at Purdue and this potential business endeavor. We come seeking your guidance. We pray for your Spirit's discernment, that there would be a sense of unity amongst all of us who have been charged with analyzing these situations and coming to decisions. God, we pray for your guidance. And as we come, we do especially lift up with heavy hearts the untold pain, physical, psychological, spiritual, emotional damage that has been wrought all over. God, there is such a heaviness. We pray for your peace to come on these families, these communities. May they know your Spirit's strengthening hand to endure. God, we need you. I ask for safety as we travel. We thank you, God, for your presence in our lives. In your name we do pray. Amen.
Okay, thank you, everybody.